Hello, I'm Gavin Hoey, and in this video tutorial I'm going to show you how you can make this fractured or blown apart image using Photoshop. And you'll need two other things. The first thing is time, because this isn't a quick tutorial. It will take a little bit of time to put together. And the second thing is spatter paintbrushes. Now these are custom paintbrushes that you can download from all over the place on the internet. But the four brushes I'm going to use for this tutorial, I've put on Adobe Exchange for free. You can download them, there's a link on screen now, or click the clickable link in the video description. Install them and you're ready to go. Okay, now it doesn't start with this picture, it starts here with a basic white background picture, and I'm going to use the quick selection tool to select our subject. Now, you don't have to have a picture on a white background, although it looks very clean doing it this way. Any picture will work, because we're going to make a selection and cut her out, okay? And any background will work as a result. Now, once you've made your selection, Command or Control J just to duplicate that selection and promote it as its own layer. So there we can see I've made a rough and ready cutout, and it is rough and ready. Right, let's switch that layer off. We don't need it for now. We will come back to that. And I'll go up to Layer, choose New, and Layer. We'll make a brand new layer. Let's call it White. Whoops, let's spell white properly. Helps look at the keyboard. There we go. So we've made an empty layer, nothing on it at all, and as you can probably guess, we're going to put some white in. So we're going to use paintbrushes, and we're going to use these special spatter paintbrushes that I've made specifically for this tutorial. And there are four to choose from. I'm going to start with number one. Seems like a good place to begin. You'll see it's really, really big. Now, we don't want it that big, so I'm going to go to Window, choose Brush, and we'll bring up the Brush panel. And on the brush panel here, I can choose a couple of things. First of all is size, which I'll take down to about 400 pixels, and spacing, which I'll take out to, what, about 80 to 90%, so there's plenty of gaps between the brushes. Then I'm going to jump to Shape Dynamics. It's my favourite one, this one. Shape Dynamics, I'm going to put the size jitter to about 50%, the minimum diameter to about 50, the angle jitter to about 50. What great names. Roundness jitter, about 50. You get the feeling that everything's about 50. Yeah, you're pretty much bang on. That'll do nicely. And then I'm just going to paint white down the back of her head, and that down the back of her shoulders, and down the back of her back. And I'm just going to break up the back side of that image so that it isn't completely solid and has a nice kind of broken up look to it. And I kind of like brush number one for this because it does give that nice gently fractured look, but we'll come on to a couple of other brushes in a minute, because as I said, time is the winning formula here. But this just gets us as a starting point like that. Okay, so that looks pretty good, and let's just go and grab brush number three, I think, for this one, which again is quite big. So we'll jump back to the brush panel, and we'll do the same as we did before. We'll make it a lot smaller, about 400 pixels in my case. We'll take the spacing up, and that needs quite a bit of spacing, and we'll flick on Shape Dynamics. Now, Shape Dynamics should remember where the sliders were, so that's kind of handy. And we'll just put a bit on here. Now, this is a much more aggressive brush, so it works much faster and breaks the image up much more. Let's take quite a bit of a chunk out of her shoulder, I reckon, there, and maybe a large bit of her back, because these are the bits that are broken off and are going to be flying through the air, or at least they will be when we've done the next step. And we'll come around down onto her leg. I'm not going down as far as her feet, you'll notice, because I want a little bit of reality in the picture still in a few places. Okay, there we go. That looks pretty good. Okay, so broken up, that looks very nice indeed. We're getting along in the right direction. Now, remember that cutout we made right at the beginning? Well, we're going to go to that layer, Command or Control J to copy that layer once again, turn on the visibility, and then use a bit of free transform, Command or Control T for free transform, and we'll start to stretch it out. Okay, we're going to end up with this kind of odd looking sort of 80s pop video effect where you have multiple people at different sizes. Yeah, if you get that, you're in the right place. But there's still quite a large gap around here where her knees are bent. So I'm going to take this a stage further by going to Filter and Liquify. I love Liquify. It's a great fun filter because I can use the forward warp tool and just sort of warp it around. In fact, if you ever wanted a tutorial on how to make people look bigger, how to gain weight, then this would be a great tutorial for it. Don't think anybody really wants to gain weight. I think I'd personally rather lose it, but there we go. That looks okay. And whilst we're here, we'll kind of mush up the the picture a bit as well, because this is going to be, rather than a large person, it's going to be little bits of people of clothing flying through the air. So they're all going to be in slightly different positions. So we'll just kind of move things around and click OK. Now, that amount of distortion on a high resolution image like I'm using here is going to take a little bit of time to render. And there we go. So we now have a very large person and a very normal sized person. Let's hide the large person. Let's go up to layer, and we'll go to layer mask and then use a hide all layer mask. So that puts a black layer mask over the image, and we don't see the large person anymore, because we're not going to see her all. We're only going to see bits flying off. And to do that, we need a paintbrush. And, well, not just any old paintbrush. It's going to be our spatter brush again. So let's go find that. And, well, we used 1 and 3 last time, so let's use brush number 2 this time round. Now, brush number 2 is great, but it all seems to be flying towards the right-hand side. So if I go back to the brush panel and go back to the brush tip shape, we have this little compass thing here. If I rotate the compass in the opposite direction, it rotates my brush. And I can rotate my brush any way I like. Let's make it a little bit smaller, like that, and we'll angle it up a little bit more. And with one click, making sure I'm working with white as my foreground colour, otherwise you won't see anything, I can have little bits flying off the back, like that. That works really well. Let's come down to her legs, and we'll do that again. We'll rotate it at a different angle and maybe make it a bit smaller, and boom, off they go. Okay, that works really nicely. Let's get another brush. Let's go for number 4. We haven't used that one yet. And again, we'll make the brush a little bit on the smaller side. And let's give it a bit of a twist. And we can just add in a couple of bits here and make it a little bit bigger. Boom, and out they fly. Okay, so we can have all these little bits flying around all over the place, which is really nice. Perhaps we can have a little bit up by her head like that. But it is quite solid at the moment. If I go in and have a closer look here, these parts are very, very solid, where that white we painted in before is much more fractured. Well, we can deal with that as well, so we'll go back to the paintbrush, and we'll make sure we have black as our foreground colour this time. And I'll choose brush number 1, because it has a nice kind of floaty feel. And with brush number 1, all I need to do is rotate it, I think. Let's put it 90 degrees to where it was before. And with a few clicks, I can just break up those solid areas into much smaller lumps. If I go in close, you'll actually see what I'm doing. Let's just do this bit at the back here. We'll get the brush, and it's quite big, but with one click you can see that it kind of breaks up those solid lumps into much smaller chunks, and it gives a much more fractured feel. So I'm happy with that, but the bit I'm not happy with is this white band running through her back. Well, that's going to be on the layers again, so let's go find the layer in question. And I'll make sure it's activated. That's the white layer there. I'll go up to layer, choose layer mask, and this time I'll put a reveal all one. So that's a white layer mask. Again, let's go in closer so you can see what I'm doing on your screen. Here we go. And we'll get a paintbrush, and we'll use the same brush. Why not? This time I'm going to be painting with black, and when I click with black, it's just going to put a few little spots and dots in that white area and just break that up a little bit, like so. Again, that all adds to that kind of fractured look of the image. Now, on the whole, I'm pretty pleased with how this is looking, but it's worth going in much closer when you've finished, just to see if there's any stray bits appearing, like here, for example. I mean, that doesn't quite look right. Why would she have a bit of a shirt on her chin? Well, we can deal with that. First of all, we've got to identify which layer is causing the problem, whether it's the white layer or the kind of enlarged layer. It's the enlarged one. Click on the layer mask. Get an ordinary paintbrush. Don't need the spatter ones. They've done their job now. And we'll make it a bit harder, like that. We'll make it a lot smaller so we can actually see it, because at the moment it's giant. There we go, just using the left square bracket to make it smaller. And painting with black, I can just hide those bits away like so. Again, just got a couple of holes there that look a bit weird. And down through there. Okay, so we just tidy this up in places. As we come down, there's some on our legs there as well. Similarly with the white areas, if it's got any areas of white that you don't want, you can deal with those and take them out by selecting the white layer and working on the layer mask there. Okay, that looks pretty good. Quite happy with that. Last thing to do, remember that layer that's just sitting there turned off? Well, let's make that visible, and let's drag it between the white and the enlarged layers so it fits in the middle. I'll change the blend mode to color burn. Now that'll make the whole picture much, much darker. Okay, so color burn, and we'll zoom in a little bit so you can again see what's happening. Lovely. Because what I want to do is just darken up the back edge where it's all breaking up. So one more layer mask, layer mask, reveal all. And with an ordinary paintbrush, like that, we'll paint black to bring back the real color, except on the back edge where we want it to go that little bit darker. And that just helps that reality look. It just seems to blend the whole thing in a little bit clearer if it's a bit darker in places. Brilliant. Okay, so there we go. That's the basic technique finished. Now, of course, you can spend time and make your own backgrounds. I've made one earlier that you can drop in. That all adds to the effect because, particularly on my picture, which didn't have a background, when it has a background, you can see through her body and see the bits breaking off, and that just looks more effective like that. So have a go, download the brushes, and try this with your own images. And if you want to find out more about me, don't forget to visit my website at www.gavtrain.com. Thanks for watching.